Hi there, and welcome to this month's 303 special with computer music. We're going to be working exclusively with the Roland TB303 plugin, and we're going to be creating a couple of patches that specifically utilize the 303. The first patch we're going to look at is loosely based on Higher State of Consciousness by Josh Wink. Although the sound is quite stylized, it could certainly be used in many other scenarios. So the first thing we need to do is load up our favored DAW, and we're going to load in an instance of the 303 plugin. We then need to initialize both the pattern and the patch. Now, the unique thing about the TB303 is the pattern side of the sound was just as important as the actual synthesized sound. Hence, we need to make sure we initialize both. The easiest way to initialize the 303 plugin is to firstly go to the central area where it has both the pattern and the patch names displayed. We're going to click on the pattern first, and we're going to select something which is unsaved or initialized. We're going to do the same for the patch line as well. Now, having done that, the first thing we're going to do is start working with the sound. Now, the 303 is a very simple synthesizer ideal. It consists of a single oscillator with the waveform displayed on the top left-hand corner. For the purpose of what we're doing here, we're going to work with a sawtooth, but it's switchable between saw and square. Now we're going to move over to the filter section, and where it says cutoff frequency, we're going to move that pot to roughly the 10 o'clock position. We also need to employ some resonance with this patch, so we're going to change the resonance pot and place that at roughly the 1 o'clock position. We can audition the sound at any point by playing it on the keyboard. And you can hear that's quite a dull sound at the moment, but with a little wisp of resonance. We're going to accentuate that by now employing some overdrive. So we move to the top left-hand side. There is a little button that has panel written on it. By clicking that, it will reveal the effects section. We want to use the drive type, which is known as metal. So by clicking on the drive type pot, we can scroll through the different drives available, and we have compression, overdrive, fuzz, all sorts. So we're going to stick with metal for the time being. In order to apply this overdrive, we also need to adjust the depth pot to around about the 12 o'clock mark. And you can hear that's now starting to overdrive nicely. An intrinsic part of the makeup of the 303 is derived from the sequencer that's on board, and we're going to do a little bit of work with that sequencer now and employ that to create our sound. The original TB303 was renowned as being a little bit of a pig to program. Thankfully, things have moved on and improved somewhat thanks to our desktop environment. To reveal the sequencer section, we move down to the keyboard section on the 303 and we click the edit button, at which point the sequencer element is revealed in the lower half. The primary component that we need to program first are the actual notes that we want, and these can be inputted in two different ways. You can either click on a note by clicking on the pitch gate line, or you can select a channel you want to work with and input a note by pressing the keyboard below. Either way, when you press the run or stop button, you should hear what you've inputted. For reasons of copyright, we're not able to show you the exact sequencer that Josh Wink created for his track, but we're going to create something a little bit like it. Some things to bear in mind is apart from the notes themselves, you can also activate accents and slides. The point of an accent is it will accentuate the particular note that you have highlighted. So if I accent these two notes here and then press run, you should hear they're a little louder. And that helps you to accentuate elements within a certain pattern. One of the most intrinsically identifiable traits of the 303 is the ability for the sequencer to slide from one note to another. We're going to activate some of these slides to create that identifiable sound. I'm going to move to step number 8 and activate a note, but actually select a different note from the keyboard. I'm also going to move back to step number 7, and I'm going to activate the slide button. Consequently, if we activate the sequencer now, we'll hear it slide from step number 7 to step number 8. So in true Blue Peter style, I've already created a pattern and I've saved it. So I'm going to go to the pattern section and I'm going to load the patch which I've named Josh Blink. Consequently, when I press the play button, we get something that sounds like this. And you can hear we've got accents in play and we've got slides in play. Also, one notable point, you can see that step 10, 11 and 12 all have slide activated, but because step 10 and 11 both have the same note assigned, it elongates the note. This is quite useful if you want to create a note which is longer than the 16th note, which is the default setting for the sequencer. Now the final part of this equation is to use a little bit of automation. I'm working in Logic here, but you'll also notice that I have no note triggers activated in my Logic track here. This is because the 303 is handling its sequential duties internally and it's already running in sync with our DAW. This happens by default, but just in case it's not happening for you, you need to just make sure that this button here that says Position Lock to DAW is activated. I'm going to actually program some automation which relates to the cutoff frequency, and in fact I've already done this. I can reveal this now in my Logic field. And when I press play, you will see the cutoff frequency control moving up and down. So very effective, and it's really useful for creating those peaks and troughs in the context of a track.